Star Wars fans have a bad feeling about Solo. For a movie about the greatest smuggler in the galaxy, it can't seem to make a getaway from its production troubles. Between an unprecedented directorial switch-up and a movie poster snafu, everything you've heard about Solo is true. Hey guys, this is Brendan with Cinematica, and Solo is starting to sound a lot like the Han himself. Good! A little rough around the edges, but you know, good. He may have made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, but we're making a list half the length. A parsec is a measurement of distance anyway, tell your friends. With the secret production problems behind Solo, a Star Wars story. Han Solo takes orders from just one person, himself. Except on set, where he took orders from like 5 people. Like Josh Trank's departure from the Boba Fett project and Colin Trevorrow's departure from Episode 9, Solo's directors were subject to some misdirection. Right from the outset of production, Phil Lord and Chris Miller were in charge. You may know them as the guys who actually made a good movie about Lego and who turned a 1980s police procedural into a surprise comedy hit, or as the co-creators of the recently departed comedy series The Last Man on Earth. Toys comedy in the 80s are like the building blocks of Star Wars. You think they were a perfect 2x4 studded fit. Alas, that is not the story from the set. Lord and Miller's low-budget comical sensibilities evidently didn't gel well with the pace of a Star Wars set. They often felt rushed by Lucasfilm's breakneck production schedule, which gave them little time to shoot what they wanted. They preferred to run the same scenes dozens of times, allowing their actors to improvise. Yet, from a certain point of view, it appeared as though they had no idea what they were doing. Their preliminary footage eventually made its way to Lucasfilm chairwoman Kathleen Kennedy, who was displeased. Kennedy dispatched screenwriter Lawrence Kasdan to rein in the rebellious team. Kasdan's direction was way more by the books, or in this case, by the script. You know, he did write it. He crossed swords with Lord and Miller, but unfortunately for them, he had the high ground. Ultimately, with just a few weeks left in the production, Lucasfilm purged the comedic duo from the project, citing creative differences. In yet another unorthodox move, the company called in Ron Howard to finish the film. Note that years earlier, they had offered him the position on The Phantom Menace, and well, you see how well that went without him. As for whose movie it is, Ron Howard is receiving the director credit, but Lord and Miller will receive an executive producer credit. Just always remember this, Lord and Miller shot first. If there's one thing you need to get right in a Han Solo movie, it's obviously Han Solo. While I couldn't find Harrison Ford's exact shoe size on Google, I can tell you there are big ones to fill, metaphorically and also probably literally. As tempting as it would be to cast Harrison Ford and then de-age him in post-production, I think Star Wars fans have had enough uncanny CG faces. That and Ford can't seem to stop injuring himself. Besides, he really wanted Han dead. There were reasons it couldn't happen is what I'm trying to say. Don't worry, fans have already taken to the internet to assert that Solo won't be the same without the man who embodied the character. So it would clearly be a bumpy ride for anybody picking up such an iconic role. We do not envy Alden Ehrenreich. Like Daisy Ridley and John Boyega before him, the Hail Caesar alum seemed like the perfectly wide-eyed and relatively unknown man for the part. His casting was met with the obligatory fan backlash. He looked and sounded nothing like Harrison Ford, but that was never the point. Of the film's multiple directors, none of them wanted the lead actor to do a 2-hour Ford impersonation. Much like Chris Pine in the Star Trek movies, who evoked the feeling of William Shatner without the whole speech, pattern, thing, spa. All Ehrenreich needed to do was channel Solo's vibe and swagger. So when the news broke that Kathleen Kennedy was unhappy with his performance and they had to hire an on-set acting coach late in production, that's a forced disturbance for sure. In Ehrenreich's defense, we know he's a good actor. He's so good in Hail Caesar. It's a Coen Brothers movie for Pete's sake. Then again, he was playing an actor who couldn't deliver his lines right, so, you know, for all I know, he just method acted too hard. But between all the conflicting visions on set, many of the actors were in the dark about what they should be doing most of the time. Thankfully, the acting coach did apparently help, and Ehrenreich got more comfortable in Han's big boots, and so we have a new hope that he did a good job. The news now is that he's already signed on for 2 more movies after this one, so he'll have time to refine his Solo. Paul Bettany appears in Solo as Dryden Vos. You know, the big shot gangster that tasked Woody Harrelson's character Tobias Beckett with putting together a crew. That makes him a key figure in the film, and here I thought he was still chilling with Scarlet Witch in Disney's other cinematic universe. If his casting came out of nowhere to you, then it might ease your mind to know that Ron Howard only added him during reshoots. Dryden Vos was originally played by Michael Kenneth Williams from Boardwalk Empire and The Wire. Howard had previously directed Bettany on a few occasions, like his 2001 classic A Beautiful Mind and 2006's The Da Vinci Code. According to Williams, his version of Vos was a half-man, half-lion hybrid alien who was at the pointy end of a love triangle with Kira and Han. When the Howard-led reshoots began, Williams was busy filming the Red Sea Dividing Resort in South Africa, Africa, a little ways away from the Solo studio in London. Paul Bettany started working on set less than 2 weeks after getting cast. The Dryden Vos character was reworked to fit Ron Howard's new vision, ditching the half-lion look. Considering Bettany's claim that Howard did even more reshoots than intended, it's clear that the role was overhauled quite a bit from the Lord and Miller days. To Michael Kenneth Williams fans, do not worry, he's got the spirit of the half-lion man he once played. When production finally wrapped, you'd think the movie would be all in the clear, but after every crime, there's a wanted poster. It's rare that the poster is, also part of the crime. When the Lucasfilm marketing team dropped the Solo teaser trailer and poster set, the crew might have thought it would sell audiences on their multi-million-dollar flick that was directed by like 7 to 10 people. The bold, colorful character posters they released were a huge departure from the Star Wars franchise's usual style. They even looked like real wanted posters. It was all fun and games until the law caught up. The law being French artist Hakim Bahouz, who noticed that the posters bore an uncanny resemblance to the album cover set he created back in 2015, which was titled The Legacy of Jazz. Like the posters, his original art had 4 covers, each using a different color scheme, which just so happened to be the same colors that Solo used. And the similarities didn't end there, even the font was the same. Disney stated that they'd be investigating the matter. Luckily, the posters were allegedly created by an outside vendor rather than internally at Disney. In the meantime, Disney dropped the giant text and old parchment look, re-releasing the character art as a new poster set. That's not the end though. Overseas, the movie's endless reworking brought about another casualty when the marketing team removed the character's blasters from the photo. Their intent was to make it look more accessible to a younger audience. Remember that Solo is the guy who once said that hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side. Now he doesn't have one of those either. One big factor working against the Star Wars franchise is, well, itself. Sometimes you can have too much of a good thing. While Avengers Infinity War recently proved that there's no such thing as Marvel fatigue, it's too soon for the Star Wars cinematic universe to say the same. The most recent episodic entry, The Last Jedi, seriously underperformed at the box office, at least relative to its predecessor, The Force Awakens. Rogue One, the last anthology film, made even less money than that. There hasn't been worse news for a projection in Star Wars since Leia's call for help in Episode 4. It makes sense that expectations are high. This franchise was birthed from one of the top-grossing domestic films of all time, and kicked off its modern run with one of the top-grossing international films of all time. Sources allege that Disney is worried Solo will see another big box office dip. Disney higher-ups are supposedly already writing it off as a loss. With at least 10 upcoming films on the dual sun horizon, they can afford to let one fall by the wayside. However, if there's a systemic disinterest in the abundance of Star Wars movies, then it's a behind-the-scenes problem that runs deeper than Solo alone. Just like The Force, these movies need to find balance in their release dates. That leaves just one more issue, and it's a big one. Is anyone actually excited for Solo? Stand up if you asked for this film. Han Solo is one of the greatest movie characters of all time, and you can bet that there are several internet bloggers who agree with me. He's enviably charming, and his scoundrelly bravado is downright scene-stealing. Yet an unspoken crowd of Star Wars fans agree that he doesn't need his own film, much less a prequel. We have bad experiences with those, you know. Besides the lack of Harrison Ford, the two main concerns are that the movie is telling a safe, rehashed narrative, and that it's a thinly veiled marketing ploy to sell more Star Wars. While Han has a backstory full of exploits, like how Chewbacca owes him a life debt, how he won the Millennium Falcon from Lando, and of course how he made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. Maybe. That's a whole slew of stories that we know. Rather than exploring new ground, Solo is leaning on information we've already heard and already know the outcome of, and that can be just kind of boring. Like, did you see the trailer that ends with Chewbacca dangling from a train moments from being crushed at a high velocity on a mountain? Like, you think he survives? Other than the film's new characters, all of Solo's cast is wholly safe from harm. In the words of a future Solo, let the past die. And that's about it. I'm Brendan, and thanks for watching Han Solo, A Star Wars Story's Secret Production Problems. Think this movie will live up to the legendary character? What do you want to see in the film? Comment below and let us know. If you like this video, subscribe to Cinematica, where we cover all your favorite TV and movies.